sometimes people confuse myself with Ross. So you'll have to be, if you're sort of getting a little bit confused yourself, even though Ross and I look a little bit similar and we're similar age, we've been around the centre similar number of years, we're not the same person. So Ross is sick at the moment, and he wasn't well enough to do tonight. So I have been asked to do it in his place. So I apologise for that, if apology is needed. And I will sort of do a similar topic to what Ross was going to do, so I'll follow what he's said in the newsletter. But so just Ross is also scheduled to do a one-day course this weekend, and he is still on track to do that. So if you're thinking of booking in for that course, then I'd highly recommend that you do that. And so Ross will be teaching this Sunday all day. So, and so settle yourself with a relaxed body. So we come here and we adopt a seating position and sit in a chair or sit on the floor, and we adopt a relaxed position physically, and then also to adopt a relaxed and calm mind as much as we can. So, we think a little bit about what that might mean. We can easily sort of stop physical movement. We can sort of control our hands from flapping around, and we can sit quietly, physically quietly. And so we might do some physical scan, relaxation, and relax fine tension in our body and relax the body, so we can establish a relaxed body. But we still might feel quite agitated. So we have to understand also that to actually feel relaxed and calm not only requires, say, the body to be relaxed, but also requires our mind to be relaxed. And so we can generate a calm and relaxed state of mind, and then from that calm and relaxed state, we experience a sense of some peace. We will experience a sense of some peace, some maybe even happiness, some due to that mental calm and peace, we can actually experience a sense of peace, that maybe some disturbances have subsided, and so because of that subsiding of our mental disturbances, the result of that is actual happiness and peace that we experience. And so examining even a simple situation like this of sitting here in the room, we can start to see that there's, I who experience these things, I have a body and I have a mind, and so my experience, I the experiencer, experience this body and this mind. And in particular, my happiness or my calmness, my sense of peace is dependent on, we can say it's dependent on both this physical experience and the mental experience. And so it's good to start thinking about that contributor of my happiness that is my mental state. So if we've never thought of it before, we can sort of view it like this: body, mind, and I. And I, whether I'm happy or unhappy, is dependent on my body and on my mind. and to see how these things affect my happiness. So we all have a personality. We have a personality. And so what is a personality? We can say that a personality is like a whole network of different aspects, emotions, history, experiences, our expression, our belief, our prejudices, our ideology, our whole collection of stuff that manifests as my personality. So if we start thinking about personality if we look, and Atisha, who was a great Indian yogi who created the second wave of Buddhism that went to Tibet. So around about the year 1000, he travelled to Tibet, and he spent the rest of his life teaching in Tibet. And he said the greatest excellence is observing your own mind. Observing your own mind is the supreme excellence, excellent behaviour. The excellent observation is observing your own mind. And so if we think about personality, my personality, we might say, you might start off on the positive side, and you might say, oh, I'm kind, I'm generous, I'm loving, I'm angry, I'm jealous, I'm deceitful, I'm, crude, I'm vulgar, I'm whatever it is. And you sort of see this whole collection of your personality by observation of your own personality. You see all these different sort of things, and you may not like particular aspects of your personality, and other people are probably quite often will point it out to you. Oh, you're so jealous, you're so proud, you're so angry, you're so aggressive, you're so distracted, you're so whatever it is. And then, there's other people might tell you good qualities. But the point is, we all have this great mix of aspects to our personality. And so we may even think then that our personality is something, we might have a belief that my personality is quite fixed. I am this. And we have this sort of like very fixed I am sort of attitude towards ourselves. Even though we recognise that there's all these different aspects to our personality, and how we might be quite comfortable with some aspects of our personality, but very uncomfortable with other aspects of our personality. We're very resistant to accepting that we're miserly or crude or vulgar or jealous or angry or deceitful. But we might still think, this is my personality, take me as I am, sort of like with some idea of that being fixed. So something to think about. What is your personality? But the point here is that what we might call our personality is really just a whole collection of behaviours and thoughts and attitudes that are within my sphere, my sphere of body and mind, within my personal sphere of mental action, motives, emotions, thoughts, dreams, everything. That's my personality. It's the expression of my mind, of my mental state, in a collection, the collection of my mental state. That collection, that is my personality. So we may have a tendency to think that is something very fixed, something, I was born with this personality, I'm going to die with this personality, I cannot do anything about it. Okay. So here, when we start to observe the mind, if we start to observe our own mind, we can see that any action that I do is preceded. It's preceded by a thought. It's preceded by an intention. It's preceded by a motivation. And it is presided by a thought. It's presided by a mental action. It's presided by a motivation during the action itself. So there is both this preceding and presiding mind during our activity. So we can then see that my actions are actually formed. They're formed by this motivation. If my motivation is kind and generous, loving and affectionate, if my motivation is kind, generous, loving and affectionate, then my action will be kind, generous, loving and affectionate. If my preceding thought and motivation is cruel, destructive, harmful, angry, hatred thought, then the action that is formed by that thought will be cruel and harmful and destructive. So if we start to examine ourselves like this and observe this, so we can observe this in our daily activity. We can see that, I have been arrogant and aggressive and superior to a colleague or to my partner or to my manager, to my subordinates, to somebody in the traffic, to whatever. And if we do this mental observation, if we observe our mind, we will see that my visual expression, my facial gesture, what I have said, what I have done, gesture I've done at the window of the car, the way I've driven my car, bipped the horn, jammed on the brakes, whatever it is, road rage thing, whatever, at work, in a shop, at home, with the remote control in your hand and fighting over the remote control or something like whatever it is. If I examine my mind, I will see that it is preceded by a particular state of mind and it is presided over by a particular state of mind. So this is something really to observe in your own life. This is not, nobody can tell you that this is the state, even though I'm telling you this is the state, but nobody can actually tell you this is the state. You have to examine and check this yourself. So, if I don't do this, then I will have the belief that my anger is totally justified because that person stole from me, abused me, cut me off in traffic, has insulted me, has deprived me of this or that, that my desire is totally justified and my complete distraction and obsession with somebody is because they're beautiful. If I have this relationship, I will be totally happy and never dissatisfied again for the rest of my life. That I will have all happiness if I possess this person in a relationship. And that my happiness will be totally fulfilled if I have this position, this house, this wealth, this career, this political outcome, this environmental climate outcome. If I have this action, I will be satisfied and happy. So the difference is that if we can really understand our mental state and our way we see the world, then we can start to understand that there is an external world that has value, that has a reality, but me as the experiencer, I as the experiencer come down merely to this body, mind, and I, the experiencer. So what I experience is primarily my own state of mind. You know, what I am really experiencing in any circumstance is my own state of mind. And my own state of mind is generated by not just the external circumstance, but it's also generated by the thought that precedes and presides over my interpretation of the world. So my interpretation of the world is coloured, exaggerated, or diminished by my own state of mind. So, to demonstrate what this means, so the mind of anger, you know, we might say this person here is my enemy. And so my mind is absorbed or focused on that person. And in particular, it's focused on that person in relation to the harm or the insult or whatever that I think that person has done to me. You know, so this is if you talk about the mind, you know, this mental has an object. So there's an object that the mind is holding or focused on, absorbed in. And so in relation to that object, I experience hurt, I experience loss, I experience being harmed, I experience being abused, being diminished, somehow being overpowered. I have a crushing sort of loss, feeling of hurt and dissatisfaction in relation to this object that I am focused on, the enemy, this unkind person. So normally what we say is happening, yes, I'm experiencing anger. That anger is totally justified because this person is harming me, is diminishing me, is overpowering, crushing, entrapping, hurting me. And because of that, I experience anger, loss, harm, suffering, you know, diminishment. So here, you know, the path that if we really start to observe our mind, we can say that, okay, this circumstance objectively, we can say is justified. We can say that I am being insulted. This person may be intending to harm me, but my experience, my suffering experience is primarily due to my mind. It's primarily due to the experience within my own mind. Okay, so this is something to really start to think about as to whether you think this is true or not. And the only way you can ever decide whether this is true is by observing your own experience and observing the workings of your own mind. Because we have spent forever thinking that my experience is dictated to me by the external circumstance. I am happy because I have just won the lottery. I am sad because my partner has left me. I'm happy because I've been given a promotion at work. I am sad because I haven't been given a promotion at work. And in that assessment of life, we are ignoring the role of my own thinking, my own state of mind. So, like I say, there is a state of mind that both precedes and presides over my experience. And we have to try to identify, or to, if we observe our own mind, we will start to get a view on what it is that is, from the side of my mind, is presiding over my state of mind, is presiding over my experience. So this is, and this is why meditation is absolutely critical. Meditation is critical because in meditation we are trying to work just with our mind, within our own mind. So if we start to have an experience of meditation, then we can start to see how that it's actually my state of mind that is what determines my experience. It's not the object. Okay, the object is a contributor. The object is a contributor only in the way, it's only a contributor because my mind is holding that object. So let's say there's a billionaire somewhere who had $100 million sitting in a bank account in somewhere or other, and somebody has stolen it, right? So that theft, the theft itself, is not a cause of unhappiness for him until he knows about it. The theft may have occurred. The theft may have occurred, but the theft is not a cause for suffering until he knows about it. So when he hears the news, does he have to suffer? Does he have to suffer? That's a yes or a no or indifferent. So what determines whether he suffers or not? His mind. Yeah. So the thing that determines whether he suffers is his mind. And what determines whether his suffering continues or not, or gets worse or not, is his mind. Because if he holds the thought, I have been robbed of $100 million, I have been robbed of $100 million, how terrible is that? His suffering increases. If he does not think about the theft, he does not suffer. Why doesn't he suffer? Because he has no experience of suffering, because he's not thinking about it. Now, that same thing applies to us. To really recognise that, and I know this is contentious, and I know there's people thinking they might, but what about this, what about that? This is where you have to observe your own mind and come to this conclusion yourself. So, if that billionaire does not think about the theft of that money from his bank account in Switzerland, does he suffer? No, he doesn't. He doesn't suffer. He has no experience of suffering. And so to really start to think, well, does that apply to me? Does that mean that if there's somebody I'm really jealous of and I'm not thinking about them, and I'm not thinking about what they did to me, and I'm not thinking about what good they have done, their pay rise, their success, their beautiful dress, their nice car, whatever it is, are you trying to tell me that if I don't think about them, I won't feel jealous? Yes, you won't feel jealous if you don't think about them. So whose fault is it then if you're jealous? Right? Whose fault is it if you're angry? you know. Whose fault is it if you're totally overcome by lust and desire for something? Is it because the object is so beautiful, so desirous, so attractive? Or has it got something to do with you? So this is to the way to try to understand the way that the mind works. So there's an analogy about the mind, that the mind is like, in the analogy, the mind is like a clear sky. You know, it is unobstructed. It is unpolluted, unstained. You know, our mind is unpolluted, unstained, unobstructed. Clear space. Clear space. And all of the different thoughts and experiences that we have are like clouds that come and form in the sky. The clouds form in the sky. They come from nothing. You know, they come, they abide, they take different shapes, and then they extinguish. You know, but the sky is unchanged. The sky is unchanged. But the cloud arises due to various circumstances. Due to various conditions and circumstances, the clouds appear, different shapes, different sizes, different densities, different colours, and then they disappear due to conditions. So the same with us. Our various thoughts and emotions, experiences, ideas, they arise in the nature of the mind due to different conditions, due to different circumstances and formations. They abide for a period of time and then they extinguish. But the sky and our mind is naturally unpolluted, naturally clear, naturally unstained. Right? And we'll do a little meditation later about that. But just to understand, this is the way that the mind is explained. So all of my personality is merely all these different things. Due to different conditions and circumstances, they arise and they abide, and I experience all sorts of different things. But the nature of my mind is unstained, unpolluted, not contaminated by any of those things. They are just the product of different conditions and circumstances. So, you know, we might start to see that if I can really embrace this idea, it gives me a huge freedom. It gives me a huge freedom of experience. A complete freedom of experience, because I am no longer treating as so concrete and so fixed my heartbreak or my jealousy or my anger or my lust or my pride, because I see it's just the product of different circumstances and conditions. So there's no good reason to treat them so solidly and so sort of an absolute experience. You know, something that is so devastating because it is so fixed and unrelenting. So if we can have a freedom about our experience by seeing that just due to various conditions and circumstances, at the moment I'm feeling angry. So if I can identify what those conditions and circumstances are, I can do something about it. So in the case of anger, I can see that I'm disturbed, I'm upset, I'm angry, because my mind is holding this particular person whom I dislike, whom I conceive that they've harmed me or they're really unattractive and I want them to be out of my life, they're really not helping me or whatever it is, and I'm focused on them, and I want them out of my life, I want them away from here completely, and because of that I feel angry. But if we look at this analogy of the mind with the clouds, we just say that merely due to these circumstances, I'm experiencing this. And one of the main circumstances why I'm experiencing this is because I'm focused on it. I'm holding this object as my number one focus. And because I'm holding it as my number one focus, I am then experiencing this emotion. You know, not for any other reason. Not because it's this person. That's not the reason. The reason I'm experiencing anger is because I am holding in my mind this person who I perceive as being so harmful, so destructive of my happiness. So this is where to really start observing your mind, start to understand this process. And so we can see that meditation can help us get into this sort of understanding, because through meditation we can start to understand the way that the mind works. And then we can also see that someone who does not understand that the mind works this way, that every problem they encounter, they will treat that there's a solution for this, and the solution is that I have to change this and I have to change that, and this needs to be different and that needs to be different, and this has to happen, that has to happen. The reality is we can't do any of that. And so that person can never find satisfaction. Can't you know, the Shantideva's analogy is that where could you find enough leather to cover the whole surface of the earth so that it would be smooth to your feet? You know, like you stones and pricks and stuff in the soil and needles and things, you know, nettles or whatever. Where could you find enough leather to cover the whole earth? But merely by putting leather on the soles of your own feet, you achieve the same purpose. So here, that if you don't understand that the mind, your own experience, which is due to all of these thoughts and delusions and afflictions that occur in your mind, if you don't see that they are what influences your experience, but if you think it's merely the outside world, then you're pursuing the idea of covering the whole earth in leather. And it's impossible. But if you can work in your mind, work with your thinking, with your thoughts and your understanding, then you're able to completely protect yourself against the whole world in the same way as merely by wearing something on the soles of your feet, you protect yourself against all of the stones and nettles and thorns that are in the world. But we may not see that. You know, we may not have understood that with the way our mind works. So we have to sort of try to develop this understanding of the way the mind works. So, the nature of the mind. So what is this nature of the mind? This, you know, the analogy is useful to us, the sky and the clouds. And so we can view our life experience as that, as similar to that due to various conditions and circumstances, I experience happiness, I experience suffering. I experience anger, attachment, pride, arrogance. I have a loving, kind, affectionate mind, again due to various conditions. So we can then make a choice that if we determine that anger, jealousy, pride, excessive pride, arrogance, miserliness, laziness, if we can determine that these are unsatisfactory conditions for myself, dissatisfying conditions for my experience, and if I can determine that love, affection, compassion, kindness, generosity, patience, joyfulness, if I can determine that these are actually happy conditions for myself, due to that state of mind, if I can have that state of mind abide in my experience, then I will have happiness. So the observation of my mind we can pinpoint or point at all these different states, and then we can make some discrimination. If when we're angry we say, you might be some situation, and then if you're able to say to yourself, okay, this is anger, what does it feel like? When you're angry, if you can stop yourself and say, okay, I'm really angry, what does it feel like? I'm really desirous at the moment. What does it feel like to me? I'm really proud and arrogant at this moment. What does it feel like? So if we get able to do this examination and come to understand, what does anger feel like? What does arrogance feel like? What does the mind of miserliness feel like? What does the mind of sloth and laziness feel like? So then we can start to determine a basis that we can discriminate as to what is useful to us and what is harmful to us. So the idea is that we can determine for ourselves, through our own observation, what is beneficial to me and what is harmful to me. But it only comes from observation. You have to observe and ask yourself, you might be sitting somewhere doing something, and then you say, exactly what am I experiencing at the moment? Okay, what is it that I'm experiencing? And then this is where language can be useful to us. So we might be able to say, this smells a little bit like arrogance at the moment. Yeah, it smells like arrogance to me. So there's a role here for learning a little bit about the different sort of categories of emotion, and then being able to help yourself by putting a name to your experience. So it could be a little bit of superiority or pride or jealousy, anger, hatred, but be able to put a name to it and then look at it and say, okay, what does this experience feel like? Right at this moment, what am I experiencing? And what does this experience feel like? Okay, so this is something that takes time to develop. So this is, in the Buddhist sort of list of different skills, one of them is called conscientiousness. And conscientiousness is a mental quality of holding your mind in a constant state of love and compassion and affection. And you hold your mind in that state of love and compassion continuously to protect yourself against anger arising, or to protect yourself against arrogance and pride and superiority, jealousy. Because if you start to look in this, the observation of your mental state and the discrimination of your mental state, you will start to see that, for instance, jealousy cannot coexist with a mind of loving affection towards a person. So if there's a person that you're really jealous of, the actual mind of jealousy cannot coexist with a loving affection towards the same person. Because the loving affection mind would rejoice in anything that that person had that would make them happy. Whereas jealousy is like not wanting them to have that happiness, not really being very happy with them having whatever it is, their success, their wealth, their beauty, their partner, whatever it is that you're jealous of. So it's a mind of not wanting them to have happiness, whereas loving affection towards that person is wanting them to have happiness. So those two minds are contradictory. They cannot coexist simultaneously. So the mental practice of conscientiousness, where you hold a loving, compassionate attitude towards everybody as much as you can, is actually a protection against anger, against jealousy, against miserliness, against arrogance and pride. Because those states of mind are not compatible with a mind of affectionate, caring attitude. So, meditation. Meditation is the key to all this. And so the purpose of meditation is to overcome the afflictions. So these anger, jealousy, pride, hatred, lust, sort of thing, these are called afflictions, and because they afflict us. They afflict us with suffering, with mental suffering. They are afflictions to our mental happiness. So the purpose of meditation is to overcome these. And so when we do any meditation, it's not about having 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes of some sort of peace and relaxation, happy time feeling. It's about trying to learn and to overcome the afflictions. So we'll do some meditation now briefly. So adopt a comfortable position, and we're going to just focus on the breath. We're just going to focus on the breath and keep the focus on the breath as it goes in and out. And 100% focus on the breath. But before getting to that, check on where your what your mental focus is. Check on your object. Where is your mind? Like, where is your mind? Where is it? Outside of here? Is it thinking about people going in and out of the door? Bring your mind within yourself, and let all of the different thoughts in your mind, let them fade away or drop away until there is no thought in your mind, and then turn your attention to the breath. And 100% keep the focus just on the breath, the awareness of the breath coming in and going out, inhaling and exhaling. The awareness of that in your mind. And that's your object of focus. So just keep the mind on the breath. Now, it is possible that you can come to a mental state that instead of like the breath is here and I am here watching the breath, as a subject and object, if we start to develop our focus, we can come to a situation where the the breath and the mind holding the breath are like one thing, that your whole mind is just filled with the experience of the breath coming in, going out. Not as a distant observer, but just filling your whole mind with that experience of the breath coming in and going out. So see if you can have that sort of focus. So just relax just a little bit and check what happened in your meditation. So if there was a lot of distraction or daydreaming or sleeping, just recognize that, and let's repeat the meditation just for another 2 minutes or so. So enter the meditation again, but with a very strong determination to keep your focus 100% on the breath. So absolutely make some effort to hold your focus just entirely on that inhaling and exhaling. So just relax your concentration just a little bit. So I want you to reflect on the breathing meditation and see how the appearance of the breath, inhaling and exhaling, to see how that appearance occurs within the space of the mind. So within the mind we have this appearance of the breath inhaling and exhaling. You know, that appearance is occurring on the basis of the mind itself. So, like the analogy of the clouds forming in the sky, the appearance of the breath inhaling and exhaling is appearing within the mind. And so now let's just, for a very short while, you can start with focusing on the breath and then turn your attention to the idea that the breath is appearing within the mind, and so then turn your attention to try to look at the nature of the mind in which the breath is appearing. So the breath is appearing within the nature of the mind, or in the mind. So do a little bit of the breathing meditation, but then turn your attention to try to look at the nature of the mind that is supporting this appearance of the breath. So let's just do this meditation for 1 or 2 minutes. And bring your concentration back to the room. So we've got a few minutes for any questions or discussion or observations. If anybody?
Why did we do that last bit? Because I already was doing that. I was thinking of my nasal passages. I've got this vision in my head of just one side of my nose opening and feeling the air go through it. So I always do that.
So the observation here is that you're focusing on the breath going through your nostril. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the meditation I was seeking for you to attempt to do is that, you know, the appearance of the, let's say the mental appearance of the breath coming in and out, if we refer to the analogy, so if we go back to the analogy of the mind and the various thoughts and experiences being like clouds in the mind, so what I was suggesting for you to do was to look at the sky. So in terms of the analogy, to try to see the sky, not see the cloud, in terms of the analogy. So when we're looking at the breath, we're looking at a cloud in terms of the analogy. We're not looking we're not looking at the space in which the experience of the breathing is arising. So this is not an easy meditation, but it is possible to get some sort of experience or apprehension of the nature of the mind. So the nature of the mind, it's got two characteristics. Clear, like unobstructed, unstained, unpolluted, clear, and knowing. So it's knowing, the meaning of knowing. Knowing is that it reflects the meaning. Reflects the meaning. So in the way that a mirror reflects a meaning. Right? So if you look in a mirror, you see a person, but there is no person in the mirror itself. But the mirror has the ability to reflect. So the mind has the ability to, let's say, reflect the meaning, but the meaning is not in the mind itself. It's like a mirror. So these are difficult things to try to experience. They're very difficult. And I am not saying that I've experienced them, but I know the words. I know the words about this. But so there is, it's a good, let's say today you have started the process of trying to see the nature of the mind, which is a great thing. And it's not your nostril. So, yeah, I'm not saying it's easy. It's a very complex point, this, but it's good to hear it, and it's good to try, if you have the inclination, it's good to try to understand this and think about it. But if you take the analogy, the clouds in the sky, and you keep looking at the analogy, and then you apply it to your experience, you can see that there is a similarity between the analogy and our actual experience, which is good to understand what that is. Okay? Oh, yeah.
Going back to your point before about when someone might do something to you and you let yourself feel something from that experience, how do you kind of can find the duality between going that, I felt, upset or X, Y, Z of emotions, but also not feel as if the person who did that is almost kind of getting away with it in some sense of understanding that I felt like this and working on your own emotion, but at the same time kind of not saying that it was because you felt like that, what they did was okay, if that makes sense. Kind of
yeah, so the question here is about the justice or whatever of what the other person has done to you. So, again in Shantideva, so many of these things people refer back to Shantideva, who was an Indian yogi, saint, teacher, who lived in India maybe 400 AD or 600 AD, something like that. Anyway, he wrote this book called The Bodhisattva's Way of Life. So in that he gives the example. Somebody hits you with a stick. How long is the stick? What timber is it made of? How heavy was it? How old was it? What was its colour? You can think a lot about that thing. The only thing that matters is that you hurt and you overcome the hurt. So this is not to say that there isn't a role for justice and for understanding where somebody else is coming from, etc., etc. But the point here is that if your mind is holding that object, if you're holding that object of that other person, and you're tormented by trying to understand how they could be so cruel, how they could be so heartless to me, how is that? What is driving them? What's this? What's that? All of that is not addressing the suffering in your own mind. That's one thing to consider. It's, it doesn't matter about the stick that hit you. The thing that matters is about overcoming the suffering. That's one aspect. The other aspect is that you can very simply learn from your own experience in that when you are angry with somebody, when you are cruel or heartless or insulting to somebody, what's driving you is the mental affliction in your mind. And the more you come to understand that mental affliction, you see that it is based on deception and lies and exaggeration and incorrect thinking, exaggerated, wrong thinking. And because of that, you then act out of anger and hatred and aggression. And because you're holding a certain object in your mind that you are saying is the worthy, that this object has no right to happiness, this person that you're angry with, at the moment of your anger, the thought in your mind is that this person is unworthy of happiness, unworthy of any success in life, unworthy of any good in life at the moment of your anger. At the moment of your anger, that's the way you think. And to start to see that that's entirely due to the anger in your mind. Entirely due to the anger in your mind. Right. So, through empathy, you can just identify that this person that is harming me is undergoing exactly the same mental confusion as I do when I am angry. And that's all that it is. It is mental confusion and ignorance based on wrong thinking, exaggeration, prejudice and misinterpretation and, completely destructive thinking that only results in your own suffering. And in their case, is resulting in their own experience of suffering. So, if you want to think about them, what they're going through, that's what you think about, is that due to their confusion and ignorance and their habituation to exaggeration and wrong thinking, they are suffering. But for you, the thing that you have to overcome at that moment is your experience of suffering and hurt at the insult or the thing, and you do that by changing the object that you're thinking about. And if you can change the object and you can change your mode of apprehension of the object, your suffering will disappear. Okay, so let's just do a little dedication meditation, just to look, great questions, great contributions, everybody focusing well on the meditations, thinking, listening, meditating together, everybody sitting together. This is something very rare. You have to really recognise this is unusual, it's rare, it's something very precious for everybody to come together. So think that is something really precious and rare and takes the form of a ball of white light in the middle of the room, everybody's contribution. And bring that above your own head and let it pour down into you through the crown of your head. And first of all, completely filling your body with light. So your body is completely composed of light. And all of your physical suffering is completely gone. And all of your mental disturbance is completely gone, and your mind is very open, like the sky, like a big, open, clear, unpolluted sky. Just clear and joyful, something very open and joyful. And then imagine all of that blessing collecting at your heart in the shape of a big egg of white light, abiding at your heart. And then thinking of everybody else here in the room, how they want to have happiness and they want to be free from suffering, but unfortunately they lack happiness and they experience suffering. So imagine rays of light go out from your heart and bring everybody here in the room into a state of happiness and a state free from any problems or dissatisfactions. And then to your family, your friends, exactly the same. They want happiness and they want to be free from suffering, but unfortunately they lack happiness and they experience suffering and dissatisfaction. Imagine rays of light go out to them and completely fulfill their happiness and completely free them from all suffering. In the same way, to your enemies, they are exactly the same in that they lack happiness and they have suffering which they don't want. So like this, to every living being in the universe, imagine every single living being in front of you. All of them are exactly the same in wanting happiness and wanting to be free from suffering. And all of them are the same in the fact that they lack happiness and they have suffering which they don't want. So imagine the rays of light go out completely to the end of the universe, bringing every living being into a state of happiness and freedom from suffering. Then let all those light rays, let them absorb back into you, and they return and dissolve into you. And feel a great sense of delight at having been able to visualize this. So thank you very much. Hopefully Ross will be back next Monday, and his topic this month for his Monday nights is about the mind, the nature of the mind and the mind. So I hope that I have sort of covered that. Okay. And then this Sunday he's doing this one-day course on the 8 verses of thought transformation. So I'd highly recommend that course to you if you would like to. You can book in through the office. And also, we have an open day coming up on October the 20th, Sunday, October the 20th. So there's going to be a variety of activities here on the open day, some meditation classes and some other events. And also, I'd like to mention that I plagiarised all my talk tonight from Geshe Doga's teaching yesterday down in Drolkar. So Drolkar's down in Geelong. And just as a reminder, we do have a YouTube channel under Tara Institute. So that teaching from Geshe Doga is already on the YouTube channel. So all of the material I got tonight is pretty much inspired from that teaching yesterday. So thank you very much.